Hello, hello. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to relay to you the images and impressions that are coming through, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can, based on what comes through here in your current life, okay? And I'll try to help however I can. So we're going to go to where you were, what you did with the majority of your time, 2 important days with 2 relationships and feelings involved in each day, the death and lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout, okay? So just keep in mind there are a couple of ways to make connections, direct and opposite. Direct connections is when you can directly connect or resonate with what comes through here. And an opposite connection is the kind of thing where if someone dies of smoking in another life, they might come back and can't stand the smell of smoke or can't be around people that smoke, things like that. So we're looking at various ways of connections. And remember, it's for you to connect and resonate with, but don't force it. So anything you may not connect with here, you want to tuck in the back of your mind for a later time. Because sometimes things click and connect and make sense and help out with things that come up in days, weeks, months, a year later kind of thing, all right? So you might want to grab a notebook and pen. A lot tends to come through, and we're going to go ahead and dive in. So I felt like there was a couple of things coming through. There's the idea of travel, of philanthropy, and of charitable giving of time and resources. It almost has the feeling of what we would consider to be a missionary or even like Peace Corps-ish. But where we're going is Africa, okay? And it was kind of putting me in a couple of different places. So it feels like we're looking at someone who was either transferred or who travels, but it's for the same purpose. So I was getting a feeling of, first I was getting like South Africa, like all the way South Africa, and then I got a feeling of all the way North Africa. And it feels like when I was feeling out the North Africa part, it felt like that's where the story begins, or where this aspect of you is inspired to begin what I feel like is like volunteer work or charitable giving or again philanthropy or something like that. And so what you do with the majority of your time, we're gonna get to that eventually, but it's the food card. So it feels like there's something about you being very like resourceful to provide food for, it feels like the needy or the homeless or like the poverty level. It feels like something happened where, like the Africa card, I'm not even sure this aspect is from Africa. It feels like there was a point where this aspect of you touched down in what we can just say, like, we'll say Egypt, all right? Just and this is more modern times, it feels like. And it's like, it's almost like you took a trip and you went to this place where you always wanted to go. Let's say it was Egypt to see the pyramids and all the, that touristy area. Let's say you always wanted to go. You read about it in books and you wanted to go. So you end up going, and when you get there, it's not what you thought it was. That's what this feels like. And you're like, this needs to be changed, or I need to contribute to help, because there's something where I feel like this aspect felt very connected with this land before he even went there, and feels like a male aspect now that we're talking, before he even went there, so that when he got there, let's say he saw a lot more like homeless people or poverty than he thought, like that kind of thing. It might have shocked him into inspiring him to take action in some way. And it felt like there was a connection to the land, or like this place. It's like just always been a part of like what he's always like. It's always been part of him, is at least that's what it feels like here. So he felt like, how could I not do anything? Or how can I not dedicate my time here, or my focus, or my purpose here? This has always been it. That kind of thing. Almost like it feels like to him, it's that thing like Egypt is calling, like that kind of thing. So how you might connect with this would be, if you've ever been drawn to Egypt or South Africa, if you ever just felt pulled, maybe you've seen the place, maybe you read about it, or seen it in movies or whatever it is, and every time you see it in media or whatever, you might feel like, I want to go there, I want to visit, or it feels like it's calling you, or pulled to whatever, that kind of thing. That would be a connection. Now, not the opposite, but if not, I would say to look at a photograph of the land or a depiction of Egypt, not like the touristy places, but like more like the historical things, like the ruins or whatever, and see if you feel a pull there. And if not, that's perfectly fine. This also has to do with Africa itself, and there's so much of it. So if you have ever felt pulled to this place, South Africa as well, and okay, so then we want to get in and make some connections regarding this feeling of giving your time, charitable giving, philanthropy. And so when I say that, it's this feeling of giving over one's self or one's time, energy, self to a cause, to a dedicated cause. And it brings so much fulfillment is what it feels like when he makes the decision. And it's also like it wasn't a decision at all. It was just a knowing. And I feel like that might be coming through in your case, in the case that if there's a decision to be made, it's almost like how you can trust yourself is if it feels like there's not even a decision. You know, like where it's just so naturally a part of like what you would do as far as like the what it comes down to when making a decision, where it's like, well, of course I want to go this way, of course I want to do this. But a lot of times a lot of people get stuck or hung up because then they start to weigh in like the opinion of others or the idea of what that might look like to others when they make a decision, or they weigh in if they feel responsible or a burden to like compensate or please someone based on that decision, if that makes sense. So what's coming through, if you can connect with that, this would be kind of a message for you that the right way will feel natural to you and you'll be pulled to it. And the best thing you can do is not listen or weigh in external voices when it comes to making a decision that's for you, like for your growth, your journey. You know what I mean? I feel like it's almost like the idea of like, this isn't the time to compromise when it comes to like your soul's growth. Not when it comes to things where compromise might be a good thing and might like be very helpful and you know, that kind of thing. But when it comes to your soul's growth, like almost like I want to say what feels is what's it called? Keep your eye on the prize. That's what I feel like is coming through, is keep your eye on the prize. And I feel like the prize is your growth and development, and that's where you do not compromise. But other than that, sure, it's okay to compromise, you know, that's fine, you know, like that kind of thing. So there's something that feels very like serious about when it comes to your solo life purpose, mission, journey here on earth, to not compromise that to please others in any way, or don't compromise that to look a certain way to others, or to not look a certain way to others, because that just makes the lesson learning of it so much longer. And also when you do it's the feeling of when you make a decision when you make a decision that you might like a compromising kind of thing in order to make others feel more comfortable or pleased or whatever, you're enabling them too, because you taking stock of what they would think, it almost is like the decision you make when you make a decision based on what others might think or when it comes to them, versus making a decision just for your soul's growth that you know what's good for you, it holds them back in a sense, because there is a soul contract there where you're meant to choose self-love and growth and not compromise in that way. And their soul contract is to learn the lesson from you not compromising and them feeling however they feel, whether it's judgmental or left out like, or not cared about or whatever it is. By you making a decision, someone else feels a certain way. And this is a decision you make that's not to hurt someone's feelings. That's not the intention, but it will happen based on just as a side effect of your decision. As long as that, but again, the decision is for your soul growth. They need to learn the lesson of perhaps finding coping mechanisms, feeling certain feelings they've never felt, self-evaluation. Like, so when you choose you and it affects other people, that effect that they have is part of the soul contract on their end. and they need to deal. It's kind of like an example is like really hard for mothers with their kids and seeing their kids make mistakes, and certain things you can't like save your kids from. They have to kind of go through it, like the emotional part of it. And that's a good thing, because they have to learn to cope, and they have to learn that it's okay to feel down, and then learn how to pick themselves back up. And, you know, as a parent, that's not your job, even though you want to. You know, you don't want your kid hurting, of course, but like they have to learn, because it's like just part of life. That's what this feels like. I know that was a long way to go about that, but I just wanted to make sure like that it was fully articulated. So, however you might connect with that, and again, if you don't connect now, tuck it in the back of your mind for a later time, because things might click, okay? Okay, so then we have the idea, again, we're going to circle around to philanthropy, volunteering, charitable cause. This could be coming up in the case that you in your current life, like if you are in limbo and feeling like, what should I do? I'm bored, or, you know what I mean? Like, what's the next thing? You actually might want to look into volunteering. And if something has come across your radar as far as an organization or agency that has felt like you felt pulled to, like interesting, I would definitely just take a step in that direction, because that's not for no reason, if that makes sense. It could be having to do with people who are displaced, homeless, I want to say almost like domestic abuse, or somewhere where people go in order to get necessities that they need to survive, like a food bank, a food whatever, or a place where there are beds, like that kind of thing. But that's just coming through here. It doesn't mean it has to be that way, but that would just be a connection where you might feel pulled to do that. But it could be other volunteer things as well. I mean, it could be like food festivals, or you know, that kind of thing. But there's, what else is coming through is the idea of, oh, it's also the idea of like a culture shock feeling here when he lands, and like when he gets there, culture shock, but not something not being as expected. And I feel like there's something about him that built up this thing in his head for all the years, almost like it's like expectations that are almost a little overboard, you know. And the thing is it feels like this person is actually like educated and grounded, but there's something about this place where he's always like read about it, and he built it up in his head a little fantastically, almost like he like, it's almost like he expected to like see someone like Cleopatra, you know, like that kind of thing. Like he expected something, a little bit of magic when he got there, but instead it was like such a reality, like slap across the face. And that is because of the expectations that were built, which is normal, but they were because of it, it felt like it was like a real shock, basically. So this might be coming through for you in your current life. In the case that you find yourself in a situation where you have been building your expectations, and what it feels like is the idea of like when you haven't seen a friend from childhood in decades, and then you know, maybe they move close by and you end up like scheduling a lunch, and you just remember her being like a certain way and having certain dreams, and then she shows up and she's like completely different. And let's say you base the whole like venue, like where you met up, what you wore, like, you know, what you're going to talk about, even the gift you got her, you based all of that off of what you knew of her. And then she shows up and she is completely different, like 100% different, you know what I mean? So then all of a sudden it's like a scramble to rewire all your expectations, and that can leave you like a little bit, I guess, like vulnerable, or like off, like ungrounded, or like, you know what I mean, thrown off. It's basically culture shock. So I feel like that's just an example, you know, not that you're doing that, but that's what this feels like, really. And it was a disappointment, but it was also like just like this thing about having to take on a huge monumental responsibility, and he kind of changed his whole life course over it. So what I want to say for that for you is, should you connect it with this idea in any way, this concept, to do your best to not allow your expectations to override reality. It's good to hope for the best, so it's like, be optimistic and hope for the best, but just don't expect anything. just be optimistic, I guess is what it is. And that way you can stay level and grounded for anything that might come up where you'll want to feel like you're at, like you're on point, like you're at your best, that kind of thing. So I don't know how you might connect with this either now or coming up, but just remember that if you find yourself building up expectations in your head, whether it comes to meeting someone or a new job or a how even just like how a date might go, or what is it, anything really, it's just if you find yourself building up expectations, be aware, be self-aware enough to be like, oh, you're doing that thing again, wait, let's not expect that. I mean, that'd be nice, but let's just hold back and see where this goes, and like just take a breather and back away from building the expectations, because that's not being optimistic. You can be like, I really hope this goes really well, without it being like, you know, just like a whole, like anticipating all this stuff happening, if that makes sense. So yes, okay, so keep making connections with that. Let's see, one more thing to look at could be yeah, I think right here, the food thing, I think we touched on it, but not like this. It could be food is, there's something about it where you're just like, where can I start? What's the base thing? Okay, people need to eat. Okay, so it feels like you really did something where it feels like this person, this aspect of you, established a food bank or food services or something very either affordable or for free. Could have even established, it's almost like the feeling of this person establishing like a chapter of the Peace Corps, but I'm not even sure if Peace Corps was like a thing at this time. If it was, you know, it'd be really cool, because this does feel like 20th century, just kind of early. So look up Peace Corps when it was started. Then what it would be really cool is if you looked up when the Peace Corps, if and when the Peace Corps was in Egypt, you know, and just I feel like if you find something, if you can find a date when Peace Corps was established in Egypt, or something like that was established in Egypt in the early 20th century, that would be the date. So consider that, and also you might want to look into who established it, or if it's a chapter, like who ran the chapter, that kind of thing. So that would be really interesting to kind of go and do some research on that. And so you might connect with this also with the idea of food. Are you a feeder? You know, do you show that you love people by feeding them? Do you just, you know, what is your connection with food and feeding people? And also might be feeding people who, like homeless. Like, have you gone around and, you know, handed out whatever? If, you know, and if not, that's fine, no judgment. It's just like, how might you connect with the idea of feeding people who are hungry or and in need? So it could just be feeding loved ones, or it could be feeding people in need, or both, you know what I mean? And if not, the opposite connection would be like if you're the one that's kind of always served food, or you're brought the food, or you know what I mean? It's just opposite. So you want to, again, make different kinds of connections, but however they pertain to your current life, okay? The last thing I want to mention before we move to the first important day is that this is a male aspect. So what we get with that sometimes is, in your current life, if you were a tomboy growing up, or still are, or if you are in tune with your masculine energy, if you consider yourself to have masculine traits, like in the sense of what we would, you know, what society would consider masculine, like outspoken or expressive or opinionated, or you know, forward or assured, or that kind of thing. Just whatever you might consider more masculine. It's more of an aggressive thing, not bad aggressive, but like just, you know, how the word aggressive is, versus passive, because the feminine energy is more passive. This can also indicate, because we're looking at a male here, that in your current life it's a very balance now between female male, okay? So however that masculine aspect speaks to you, and we're going to go ahead and move to the first important day. So first important day here, we have the Wowzer card, and the Wowzer card is kind of like an aha moment, or surreal, or just like an expansion of perspective, that kind of thing. So it's usually like, I guess in other words, a card of self-awareness. And the relationship we're looking at here is spouse, and the feelings here is loneliness. All right. So let's see what's happening. Okay, so this day is a day that feels like we are looking at the concept of my, how time flies. That concept. Because it feels like years have passed that he's been working on this, this endeavor of his, this charity, this whatever it might be. And it feels like something happens where either someone asks him or he sees someone or people or couple, or like he's basically, there's something about his romantic life that is lacking because he's so focused on work. And it feels like in doing so he's not like too old, he's in his prime, whatever, but it's just that there's a day where he is made to realize that he might have been too focused on work, or he maybe hasn't been as balanced as he should have, or almost like he might have been prioritizing the wrong thing for too long. So again, as a balance, we're looking at a multitasker, but someone just keeps like focusing on one thing rather than multitasking. So it's this thing where it's almost like it's like he's invited to a couple that works for him or with him, invited to their 20-year anniversary celebration, or like that kind of thing. And he's seeing it and he's realizing he's lonely, like that he would like a partner, that it's like the first day where he really just like looks around him, and it's like almost like at this party, it's almost like he's the only one without a date, and that impacts him. And he didn't really even think about it until he's standing there, and it's almost like they're making a toast to, it's almost like they're saying something about couples, and this aspect of you becomes very aware that he is not a couple. You know what I mean? So so this is an aha moment for sure. And also the idea that time passes so quickly, and almost like taking time for granted, even though he's very proud of himself and happy with how the thing is coming along, like his work is coming along. But now it's time to focus elsewhere. Like he laid the foundation, he got it going, it's going well. Now let's do me. Now it's my turn. That's what that feels like. So this could be coming up in your current life when we are looking at a period of time or something, a phase, whatever's going on right now, where you might really be looking at yourself and being like, why not me now? My turn. And it's almost like I want to say, if you haven't done that yet, that it might be time to go ahead and do my turn. It's your turn. Like that kind of thing. Because there's something about like, again, time goes by so quickly and we take it for granted because it's also very gradual, but it's hindsight when we look back and we're like, oh my God, it's been 10 years. That's crazy. So it's this idea of, I want to say this feeling of like the ship hasn't sailed. Like that's what I want to say is the ship hasn't sailed. It might look like it has, but it's like a dream of yours, or something that you feel like you just can't anymore. Maybe it would require something like for you to be a certain kind of physicality, or it might require you to be able to put certain time aside, like a certain amount of time aside, or learn something completely new, whatever it might be. I want to say, like, if there are obstacles that you find in your path, it's really about how bad you want it. As far as when I say want it, I think what it is to feel the fulfillment you would feel if you move towards a goal that you hold dear to your heart. That kind of fulfilled. I feel like that's where we're going in this reading, is getting you to feel fulfilled in your heart. And I feel like the message for that here is coming up as choose you, self-love, and time will fly, of course, but every day is an opportunity for you to decide that moving towards your fulfillment is more important than using any obstacle as an excuse, if that makes sense. So that in itself could be a message. And this is, of course, only if you connect. And if you can't connect now, you do want to tuck this in the back of your mind for a later time. Yeah, so anything about an obstacle, I want to say, if you connect with, it's like we have the mindset and the mental capacity to see an obstacle and evaluate it and determine whether we are going to put the effort forth in order to get by the obstacle or not. you know, and either way is not wrong. And it's, you know what I mean? It's just because it'll set you on a different path, and that's fine because you're making the choices and decisions. So you'll be on the right path no matter what. But just know that you do have the power to decide. Like, for yourself, you have what it takes to go forward despite what might seem like a big old wall. It can be the kind of thing where it looks like a big wall in front of you, but you just go ahead and walk around it rather than climb over it, where everyone else is trying to climb the wall. You just walk around it. It's like that kind of thing. I know that's an abstract perspective, but I think you understand it. I think you get what I'm saying. But yeah, so this might also speak to your connection as far as your relationship or romantic endeavors, and the idea of like work over love. But here's the thing though, it's not about like not working. Oh, sorry, there's a dog in the background. It's not about like putting work over love. It's it's not about like, oh, you have to choose, you know, always choose like being in love over like your work. But there's this idea too of like, maybe what you do for a work is what you love, or what makes you feel like you are giving yourself love by tending to work. So it could mean various things that you need to connect with. But if that's the case, you want to choose self-love, right? So what's self-love? Self-love is prioritizing what makes you feel fulfilled and gives you purpose, or what you're passionate about, or right? So that could mean work rather than, we'll say, tending to, like, that versus a relationship. I'm not saying one or the other, but I'm trying to say self-love might actually mean work for some people, if that's what fulfills them, over prioritizing a relationship, which might feel like it actually takes them away from what they really love. Like, if choosing a relationship is not fulfilling and does not cater to self-love for you, over choosing like a hobby you like, or work, or again, just anything besides that, then choosing a relationship does not mean you're choosing self-love. Self-love is when you choose you. It's not about, you know what I mean? Like, it's when you choose you. So if choosing you puts it so that it's not about a relationship, but it's about something you're doing, like an achievement in your life, or a life goal you've had, or, you know what I mean? Like spending time doing that, then that is self-love. But here's the thing, it might also be a relationship. So that's why you have to make the connections and, you know, kind of figure out which one serves your self-love interest. Because that is, it just feels like this is about your personal growth, and that's the way to it, is by choosing what is most fulfilling to you every time. And it might sound selfish, but it's not. Prioritizing yourself is not a bad thing. It's the best thing. And the right people will be along for that ride, because they will feel like they are choosing themselves when you choose you, versus someone who might tell you you're being selfish for choosing you over them. You see the difference? The right people will feel like when you choose you, they win too. So that's just there. Just take that however you want to take that. Connect however you can. And if not, just tuck it in the back of your mind for a later time. But yes, this day is an aha moment. And in a nutshell, it's just like, you don't want to waste time where you look back in years and years, and you might already have done that recently, or now, where you are looking back and feeling like, oh, I could have done this in this amount of time, or, you know, those thoughts that we humans have all the time. But use that as fuel to make the right choice, where you don't end up looking back 10 years and saying, oh, if I did that, then I could have been here today. This can simply be investing money in something. Honestly, this can literally just be, if you've been considering getting into investing, then green light, basically, because long-term investing this is what we're talking about, where in 10 years, you're going to be so glad that you put in, you're going to be so glad that you maxed out your you know, Roth IRA every time. You're going to be so glad. Even though it was really hard maybe at the time or whatever, you're going to be so glad you made that decision. You know what I mean? And that's just an example. I'm not giving you financial advice. But yeah, so just make that connection wherever you can, basically. So keep making connections here. We're going to go to the next important day. So this is the trauma card. The trauma card is when we are witnessing or going through a trauma, and the relationship is the child card, and the feeling is gratitude or grateful. All right. So I feel like you did end up finding someone, and this is bringing you to a day of, it beams you up. Okay, this is the deal. On this day, your partner is giving birth. Your partner almost dies. In fact, it's almost like she did die and they resuscitated her. And you are so grateful that had this hardship, this crazy day where you thought you lost, your love, and have the child here who you raise, like what could have happened. It did not go that route. Like, she came back, and you were so grateful that because of that, because of how low you were, that the gratitude frequency propelled you. It feels like it's like a trampoline. You went all the way up. Like, you were so low, you hit the trampoline and bounced so high up, and it was so quick that what happened on this day was, again, another aha moment. And you definitely, I want to say, like, your consciousness expanded to encompass a higher frequency that you got from gratitude, because you've always been thankful. You know how to be thankful. You're grateful. You get it. But this day, when it comes to like your heart and your, like in your kid, like this day, new level frequency that I feel like your human body had not, like any of your human aspects have not reached, except for this kind of moment, like, made it happen. So we're looking at someone who's vibing high, and I feel like because of that, it brought a lot of abundance into your life after this, and that in turn fed into your work, where you were able to, like, either open another chapter, whatever, different locations, whatever it did, it expanded. So we're looking at a really expansive life in a lot of ways here. Okay, hold on. So then I feel like the message through this, by the way, is something about when you're really low, use it as a trampoline to bounce back up. I read that somewhere recently, but when you're really low, like, it's almost like there's a saying where hitting rock bottom means there's no way to go but up. So that's optimistic. But then I saw one that's like similar, where it's like it's like you're not hitting rock bottom, it's a trampoline to bounce you back up. Like something like that. So I say that, and I feel like I'm repeating it again, because I feel like you can use that actually as an affirmation, like in your day, for real. Like, if you were to look in the mirror and be like, hey, it's not rock bottom, it's a trampoline, we're going up. Like something like that, like saying that every day and getting that in your mindset, in your frame of mind, where it's like you can never lose. Like, you'll always win. If you can get in that mindset, I'll always win, because even when I go down, it's a trampoline. I'm going to bounce right back up. It's like, get back on the horse kind of thing, but this is a way more fun visual. It's a trampoline, it's more fun. But yeah, so just consider that, how it might connect with you whenever you're feeling low. It's like a kind of a pick-me-up. And it's okay to feel low and feel low feelings. Like, you're human, you should. But I'm talking about when you need to, like, recoup, recover, and keep moving forward. Just think of the trampoline, is what it feels like. Because here, again, like, so low to so high. This can also actually describe in your current life if you have some mood swings. If you can be very happy and very sad. I mean, even so far as to be bipolar, or whatever it might be, where it's just like extremities. It could just be you have emotional extremities. It could be where you have extremities where you want to start something and you're like all about it, and then like next week it's no, I'm not interested anymore. Like that kind of thing. That could also be an echo from what's happening here. Yeah. So in that case, there's something about when I say that, if you can connect with any of that, connect however you can. If not, tuck in the back of your mind. But there's also something about when we're looking at this, where it's so low, so high, so low, so high. There's a feeling of in the middleness where a lot gets lost. And I feel like there's also something about going from so low to so high so quickly. That also might mean that you in your current life may be impatient. And if you find that, if you're aware of being an impatient person at times, kind of thing, if that's like your, if that's just, we all know this about ourselves kind of thing, but if that is, then this would be a call for you that it's coming from like wanting something to like thinking you like wanting it and I should have it by now, so you're impatient almost like with yourself or the process. And I want to say the best thing you can do is come up with some kind of system where it makes you focus in the middle. And I almost want to say what we're talking about is being in the present moment more. Like let's say it's as simple as like if you're like in line, like it's like you're in line to talk to someone. So while you're waiting, instead of like zoning out or like not being mindful, how sometimes we're bored in line while we're waiting to talk to someone, we're bored in line, or we're waiting to pay. Say we're like, at a store and we're waiting to pay, so where there's a long line. And you'll just zone out or think of like what you need to get done that day or things like that, rather than being like mindful and present in what's going on within you and around you. And without letting your thoughts deter you, or without like zoning out and not even being there, but rather be observant and like focus on your breath and focus on the smells and what you can see and how it feels to stand there. It's like almost like being very mindful in the present moment. In the case that you do find that you have impatience or do the extreme thing, this will. Being mindful in the present moment would help you, and there are ways that you can help yourself do that, such as what I was talking about before, even just focusing on your breath. But I feel like that can be really helpful for you, and also make it so you don't feel rushed in the case that you are someone that feels rushed often. Maybe like a slow down kind of thing and be here now kind of thing. But yeah, so that's what this day is here. Let's see. This can also be one last thing here, the child card with all this happening. If you have experienced, if you have had kids, if you experienced any kind of like, fear or anxiety when it comes to the idea of the physical like act of like actually like, being in labor, that kind of thing. If you, I don't know, that's the only connection I can make with this. This can also be the kind of thing where if you don't have kids and you don't want kids, that could be it too, because it was a traumatizing birth. Like it was a traumatizing thing to see, because they held like the kid and the mom, like your partner here held so much of your heart that like the idea of losing them almost like broke you there, like right there, like that kind of thing. So just that's just different connections how you can do that. And yeah, so anyway, keep making connections where you can. And we're going to go to the death card. So here's the murder card. And the murder card is not always stabby in the backy murder. The murder card is about intention, which I feel like this is. So this intention has to do a lot of times with like, oh, an alcoholic. It's not that they want to kill themselves. It's that they just drink so much that they end up hurting an organ or something, but not meaning to. That's what this feels like, where it feels like there's something that this aspect of you is over consuming that eventually, like, I feel like did something, like, almost like I want to say something like this kind of random, but like, it feels like over salted. It feels like this guy's like over salted, like too much sodium is what this feels like. Just, I don't know how that works or how that messes you up, but it feels like it did something. Almost like a weird inflammation-y kind of feel. So how that might connect with you in any case would be if you find that either, I would say if you love to over salt things or eat salty things over, like you prefer salt to sugar, like that kind of thing, like salty things over sugary things. Or the opposite would be if you can't stand salt, if they always taste too salty, or if you are sensitive to sodium or something like that, you know, that would be a connection there. Otherwise, you know, no connection, fine. But that's about it. So keep making connections here, and we're going to go to the lesson. So this is the work hard card for the lesson. And we're seeing someone, how this directly correlates is this idea right here, this area when we were talking about how he looks back at all the years of work he put into his endeavor here, and in doing so feeling like he missed out a little bit, or he should have been focusing elsewhere or whatever. Even though I do want to mention, it's okay like that he didn't, like, he didn't miss out. He was doing what he wanted to do. He just felt like he did. So ultimately, like, because when you choose your paths by making choices and decisions, it puts you on different paths, but every path is good and right because you'll learn lessons. So let's say that he looked back and he's like, oh, I wish I didn't work all that time. Okay, well, he learned a lesson in that, but in the meantime, he got so much done too. So it's not like he was wasting time. He was just focused on what he didn't have versus what he had already contributed. And that's just maybe another message for you, that you might not be giving yourself enough credit for what you've contributed to a situation, a circumstance, your own life, another person's life. Like, give yourself credit for what you've contributed, and don't make something smaller than it is or not significant. You know, like, everything counts. And even like things that you feel insignificant can be really great lessons. So maybe what we're looking at here is just for you to make sure you're just even, you know, go over and reevaluate things that I want to say that you might regret if you were to look back, and try to find what you learned from it, or what you contributed, or, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. And that might be helpful. Anyway, so this lesson card has to do with the hard work, and then deciding, like, I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling. I want to feel different. When he went to that party kind of thing and he felt lonely, I want to feel different now. And he made the choice, and he just basically put his radar up now, refocused outside of his work to potential, you know, to dating, to meeting someone, to, you know, opening up to other avenues of life. And so I want to say, based on that, in your current life, that just might be a little message that you want to be aware of too, is to make sure that you are opened up to other avenues of life, even subconsciously. Like, check and see where you might be closed off in various areas of your life, we'll say, because when you limit your perspective in that way, you're also limiting that abundance would come to you from various avenues. I know it's a little abstract, but I think you can understand, you know, like again, like him, like, just focus on work, but then he turned and opened up to focusing on relationships, so I mean, and in doing so, he met people, he had experiences he would never have had if he was still focused on the work. You see what I mean? So that's just that kind of thing. Like, check in where you might be limiting yourself from being open to receiving new experiences, we can say, and I feel like that would be very helpful for you. Yeah, so yes, so there's the lesson for the work card. This would feel like in your current life, how you might connect though, is if you're feeling like everything you're doing is work, it would be an echo to remind you that you need to refocus and reprioritize. So even if let's say you're in a relationship, even if that feels like work, that means you need to refocus, reprioritize something else that makes you feel more fulfilled and more, let's say, at peace of mind, more intriguing, you know, whatever might make you feel good. I'm not saying if you're in a relationship, leave the relationship and focus elsewhere. What I'm saying is encompass a new avenue of interests in life. Like, open up to the idea of maybe you want to learn something new. So then things come across your radar, like taking classes or meeting with a certain group or whatever it might be, where you start to focus more on that because it brings that self-love and fulfillment, while you also may have a relationship, or you may have work and other things. You know what I mean? So kind of like multitasking, but making space for you, like you time. Okay? But keep making connections where you can with that. And yeah, so there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections and that it was helpful in some way. And thanks for letting me read you.